Looking to buy, sell, or grow your business to position it for a sale? As the owner and managing partner of Sun Acquisitions, Domenic Rinaldi has personally been involved in over 300 M&A transactions. He has seen and done it all, consulting with large and small businesses across a broad range of industries. On M&A Unplugged, he'll interview buyers, sellers, and their advisors about their experiences scaling, selling, and acquiring businesses. On every episode, you will get key learnings, but most importantly, you will be better prepared for your own acquisition or sale. This is M&A Unplugged with your host, Domenic Rinaldi.
Who doesn't like to meet an entrepreneur that is as passionate about his business as he is about giving back? My guest this episode, Michael Polzin, is the epitome of a socially responsible entrepreneur. As the owner and managing partner of Leeward Business Advisors, Michael is giving back to his community while overseeing a business that is rapidly growing. So nice to see good things happening for good people. Michael and Leeward are involved with programs like Start IT, which creates IT career pathways for disadvantaged youth. He is also a board member of Junior Achievement, and these are just a few of the many ways Michael and Leeward have made a difference in their community. Michael founded Leeward in 2014 with two other partners with the goal of bringing quality information technology services to the small and middle market businesses. Over that time, Leeward has grown to nearly 30 employees supporting thousands of end users. Congratulations, Michael. That's awesome.
Thank you, Dominic.
Part of this growth was the result of an acquisition Leeward made of a small IT managed services company. And we will be talking with Michael about that acquisition experience and the integration challenges, and what ultimately led to a new product and service that the company will be offering. Before starting Leeward Business Advisors, Michael honed his IT skills and his business philosophies while working for companies such as Allstate Insurance and Microsoft. After a while, Michael felt the tug to build his own business and help clients in a uniquely different way. Michael, welcome to M&A Unplugged, and first, kudos to you for giving back to your community in such a meaningful way. I read a bunch of the articles and stories, and you guys are really, you're doing it in a different way than most others. And I read some of those stories, and you can't help but love to hear that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's a big part of our culture and big part of our mission. Part of it is obviously giving back and being present in our community, and does great things for us in terms of being able to bring more diversity into the industry of technology.
So I'm just curious, when you started the business, was that a basic tenet that you guys were going to give back, or is that just something that sort of happened as you started to build a business?
It's one of those kind of innate passions to be connected and work with youth and provide opportunities. And as we started to expand the business platform and, had the luxury of being able to go out and spend our time philanthropically, it really just caught and escalated from there. We were very fortunate to form a pretty early partnership with one of the local schools here in our area, and that really just kind of laid the pathway to grow and expand our engagement from there.
That's great. That's great. So you started Leeward with two partners. Did you have some customers that you were able to start the business with, or did you start with a clean slate and then go out and try to win some business? How did you actually form the business?
We were in a unique position where we had some kind of in-progress relationships, no confirmed or committed business, but definitely some high probability prospects that we had been speaking with. And fortunately, the bet paid off, and they came on board as customers pretty quickly. Within 2.5 weeks, we had our first full-time employee and had them on assignment full-time, and just been growing on revenue redirected investment ever since.
Wow. So had you all left your previous careers and started this, or did you sort of germinate the business and know you had some clients and then leave your corporate careers and do this?
It was pretty closely timed, but it was more of a leap of faith than it was a smooth transition. tell the story. At the time, my garage was too messy, so we don't have one of those great IT startup garage stories. But we sat around my dining room table and hammered out a business plan and took a step back and looked at what the opportunity was, assessed the risk, a little bit, but not too much. It's a fine line between entrepreneurs, between being bold and being crazy. So we took the step forward, and it really came together quickly.
We always say it takes a little bit of cowboy or cowgirl to be an entrepreneur and business owner. And it's so funny. You're the second interview that I'm going to have in the next week. People that just took a leap of faith. They left what they were doing and they had a vision and started the business. And that's not an easy thing to do. There's responsibilities out there, things to do, and kudos to you.
Thank you.
So, how has Leeward changed from the formation? So you sat down, you had the drawing board, you decided you were going to provide IT services. What's happened over the course of that time? How have things changed to where you are today? And maybe tell us where exactly are you today?
Well, a couple things. One, obvious, continued business growth. And we grow on both segments of our customer market. So we have a number of small business customers, and we have a number of much larger enterprise scale business customers. So we're seeing growth in both of those areas. Our services continue to grow and mature, as we listen very closely and partner with our customers to understand their needs. And then internally, as we've grown revenue and grown opportunities, we've scaled up our staff. We focus on promoting from within. So we went from 3 of us doing everything to having a service desk manager, having a full-time project manager, having a full-fledged back office now that does our billing and accounting. So it's really started to cross that precipice from small business to really a full-fledged enterprise and growing from there. So I think, as you mentioned in the intro, just shy of about 30 employees and continuing to add a few hundred customers and a few thousand various users across those customers and devices then that we support and manage every day.
Yeah, that's great. So when did you first decide that, maybe doing an acquisition was going to be a way for you to grow the business?
Right. So, going into forming Leeward, as you covered, my prior experience really is in the larger kind of Fortune 500 and enterprise space, working for companies like Microsoft and Allstate. When I got the itch to be entrepreneurial within my own career path, I started to look into the mid-market space, and that's really where we focused when forming Leeward. Then as we started to learn the market at this level a little more, we thought, well, what does the small business side of the mid-market look like? And that's when we decided, as opposed to trying to go out there and directly doing the heavy lifting and building up a sales team to focus on knocking on all those small business doors, we kind of surveyed the market. That's where we came to meet you guys and find opportunities to acquire a similar style provider, but that had a focus on the small business. And that's really where we're trying to learn what that segment of the market would look like to us.
So were all the partners at that point in time on board with doing an acquisition, or were there differing opinions?
No, we were all pretty well aligned. We saw the success we were getting in the mid-market space, and obviously there's a big blue ocean of small businesses out there, and we thought, boy, let's figure out how to scale this. Being a technology provider, we see every business is very, very dependent on their technology. Cybersecurity, cyber threats continue to grow as a concern. And especially the smaller the business, the less budget there is to manage those things appropriately. And that's really our strength, is to come in, scale down, and be able to still provide that kind of enterprise, business class security service and technology. So we were aligned. We thought acquisition was going to be a great way to get our foot into that market quickly.
Yeah, we see so many small businesses challenged with how they're going to manage their IT. And like you said, they just can't afford those resources internally. And sometimes going outside could be very expensive. So I could see where that made a lot of sense. What was the strategy? Do you have a strategy and goals set for an acquisition? So did you go into this saying, we're going to acquire something, and here's what we're looking for. Here's the profile of what we're looking for, and here are our goals and objectives of this acquisition?
We did, not too complex though. We really wanted to focus on is recognizing that there's a lot of small IT providers out there that are 1 or 2 person shops. And at some point, those individuals reach a stage in life where if they've not grown it big enough to have it carry on without them, they're going to look to sell and, kind of exit as part of their path to retirement. So that's what we were looking for, is somebody that was established, had a good customer base, and was looking to exit not because of a downturn or a business challenge, but was looking to exit more so from a retirement strategy.
So do you remember how many companies you actually looked at once you started to get out in there in the market? And what exactly did you do to find these companies?
Good old web searches here and there, asking around the network, a few that we had just seen come across our desk that we engaged directly. And I'd say all total, we probably looked at around 15. We had one before the acquisition we made that we were pretty interested in, pretty serious about, and got quite a ways down the process. Unfortunately, through about the second or third round of meetings and diligence review, we just kind of came to the understanding that the current owner wasn't really wanting to exit and was really more so looking for a financial bailout. I'd run into some hard times, lost some of their bigger customers, and at that point, it was clear it was going to be a recovery effort, not a smooth acquisition. And so we backed away from that deal, learned a lot from the conversations and the insights, and that's when we came across Sun Acquisitions and started talking about some opportunities we saw there, and one thing led to another, and we got the right introduction.
How did you come to realize that owner wasn't really motivated to sell the business? Did he just come out and say it, or did you guys just deduce from conversations that he wasn't really motivated to sell? He was desperate.
It really came from starting to immediately think about that owner as a future employee and essentially interviewing like you would for an employee, talking about goals, aspirations, what he expected the future to be, what role he was hoping to retain, and how he would carry what he's done in the past forward. And we just kind of started picking up on some little hints and insights, little shifts in body language, and it started becoming clear that his interest really was in not participating in the business, but having somebody take care of it and him and make up for the mistakes that had led to where they were. So,
yeah, we talk about motivation being such an important piece of a transaction. Is the seller motivated? I mean, also is the buyer motivated, right? And without that being present, for both parties, very difficult to get a transaction done and get a good transaction done. You talked about some other things that you and your partners learned in that first, I won't call it a failed transaction, but maybe, a false start. What other things did you learn from going down that path that ultimately helped you with the transaction that you did?
One was definitely to spend ample time with the ownership of any organization you're looking to acquire. Another thing we learned that unfortunately we had to learn a second time because we weren't quite able to execute on it, and we'll talk about this a bit, with the acquisition we did execute, is that it really is important, at least in our business being very service focused, to get some time with the key customers. And obviously that can be a difficult line to cross when you're in M&A and non-disclosure and trying to kind of keep things managed. But there's definitely different perceptions between how a company feels or thinks they're servicing their customers, between how those customers actually feel they're being managed and serviced and worked with. And that was something we were really trying to get more insight into on the first acquisition attempt and couldn't, and unfortunately also didn't get as much insight as we hoped to or thought we had on the acquisition that we did execute.
What do you think you could have done differently there? Because most owners, and I've been doing this a long time, most owners, obviously, talking to a key client is sort of like the third rail in a transaction, right? Nobody wants a potential acquirer to have access to their key clients because they don't want them to know, obviously, the business is maybe going to be sold, because in that stage in diligence, it's still a maybe, right? There's still a lot to be done. So in hindsight, what do you think could have been possible there?
Honestly, I think some more focus on our part in documenting in the transaction some specific performance expectations and goals. as well as perhaps better documenting our understanding / our assumptions of some of the services that the other provider was performing and how well they were performing them, and then maybe tying that into some type of clawback or some other type of financial bonus system to make sure that if those things did not come through the way they were discussed, that there would be some leverage, to decrease the expense of the acquisition or to possibly even, back out of reverse the acquisition if those assumptions or expectations just were not delivered on.
You're getting to some complexities in a transaction that when you start to talk about performance, there's lots of ways to get there. Let's put that to the side for a second, because we'll get there when we talk about the actual transaction that you did. So you looked at 15 companies. That's a lot of companies to look at. Were half of them interesting to you? Were 3 of them interesting to you? What was your experience in looking at that many companies?
Out of the 15 we looked at, 4 or 5 had good plausibility factors. They were in our geography. They were serving the small business scope segment that we were looking for. They seemed to have, at least publicly facing, good track record, good notoriety. And then, from there, it really came down to, which ones were, we thought anyway, which ones were, exiting more for a retirement strategy versus which ones, clearly, as we dug in, were in trouble. So, of the 5, we pretty quickly cleared 3 off the deck and then got down to the 2, the one that we didn't execute on and then the one we did.
So let's talk about the one that you ultimately went down the path with. What was it on the surface that interested you? What made that opportunity rise to the level which you guys thought, hey, this could be the one for us to integrate into the business?
Owner was clearly already kind of executing an early retirement and was trying to back away from the business, and struggled to find employees to come in and replace him. So we had a team of employees ready to go and ready to serve us. So that seemed like an easy win. Next factor was it was the exact segment of customers we were looking for, as we talked about, typical customer size, customer longevity, good fit. Also, and this is a little bit kind of more deep into our industry domain, we call a managed service provider. And what that basically equates to is we really take our knowledge, our team, our expertise, and we kind of import it into our customers and help to proactively manage their technology as well as service, the ad hoc support needs, but really keep everything humming along on a proactive basis. And this acquisition target was trying to transition from more of a legacy kind of break fix, or we'd call it the plumber's IT model, where you call them when it's broken and they're kind of not around if it's working and not necessarily maintaining it. It's trying to make that transition into the proactive managed service space. And we had already figured that out, quite a while ago. So we thought, well, this could be perfect because it's that segment of customers we're looking to acquire. He's following the legacy model, but looking to make that transition to the new model. So we really thought we'd be able to get in there and bring our services to that customer segment, and then see that customer segment escalate in revenue and profitability.
And ultimately, were you able to make that transition happen? Because I think that's the perfect model, right? I think you described it perfectly. The plumber's model, break fix, but can you be more of a partner to those clients and be there day in and day out and help them grow their businesses?
So the answer is yes and no. A number of the customers, absolutely, and we were able to transition them into an advanced service model, which we'll talk a little bit about later, and that's our Leeward Elite service model. But there was definitely a segment of the customers that we came to find out the way they were being managed was, we call it in our industry, kind of IT heroism, where they didn't so much have a good sense of the value they got from the services, but they had a really good one-on-one relationship with the prior owner. So their affinity to the business was really an affinity to the individual, not because they had a clear understanding of what they were getting, versus what they paid. So as we worked to move them into more of a team-based support model, more proactive services, That was far more of a whiplash moment for them than we had ever anticipated, and of course, the value would be lost to continue to service them in the legacy model and not gain that economy of scale by moving them forward into our model.
Michael, you just gave the M&A Unplugged podcast community a real nugget here. If you're a seller listening to this episode or a buyer listening, we talk all the time about, if the seller is the business, that's really presents a tremendous amount of risk in a transaction. And so if you're the owner of a business, you need to understand that buyers are going to be concerned about that. And buyers, you need to be understanding in your diligence, if you're going down the path looking at an acquisition, how close is that seller to the clients? And, are they really the relationship? And there are ways to mitigate those risks, but you need to all be aware of that. And that, I think, is a really key piece of any transaction. So, Michael, thanks for bringing that up. Am I correct in saying that you'd never done an acquisition before, right? This was your first time doing this, correct?
Personally, been party to a number of very, very complex M&A activities. And as Leeward Business Advisors, we actually help our customers quite frequently on the technology side of M&A. But this was the first experience with Leeward Business Advisors going out and making an acquisition. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what else did you not know that you sort of learned along the way, or in hindsight came to realize as you had the transaction in your rearview mirror?
Data, really looking at as much data as possible. And we certainly had the financials and did all the diligence there. And those numbers were all valid. There was, no issues with the financial data as it was presented and as it was. However, financial statements don't always tell the whole story. They may speak to profit and they may speak to cash flow, but that doesn't necessarily always speak to stability, and it doesn't always necessarily speak to future value or longevity. And for that is where we really wish we woulda, coulda, shoulda had more insight into the business operations. Again, being in the technology support world, there's transactions between the customers and phone calls for support, and that data was not documented to the level of detail that we would have liked by the prior provider. A lot of it was very much kind of high-level communications that were captured, so it was very difficult to truly get a data-based view of the quantity and quality of service that this provider was executing to the customers, providing to the customers.
So can you be a little more specific? What exactly would you have been looking for that could have given you more information or better information?
Yeah, so in our world, typically when a customer engages for a service need, at least at Leeward Business Advisors, we document that entire transaction. So we know who called, why they called. We're capturing all the notes of the dialogue between our support resources and the customer. We can see timelines, we can see follow-ups, we can see all the actions and activities that our team performs to service that customer. What this prior provider was doing in their support model was taking the phone call, getting in the car, going out to the customer, doing whatever it is that they did, jiggling cables, popping out hard drives, whatever it may be. And then anywhere from a few hours to a few days later, coming back to their office, putting these notes into their service system, and then issuing an invoice. Well, by the time those notes were put in the service system, they were grossly summarized and simplified and didn't really reflect the work that was or was not done when the owner himself was on site doing the work. So I guess kind of a layman's way to say it in IT terms, we got the Cliff Notes version of the business data. They didn't have the full level of verbosity that we produce when we service our customers. So what looked like a pretty good service transaction in their system, had it been in our system, we would have seen much more detail, and we would have seen some issues and delays and some deficiencies in service quality that would have put up some more red flags and maybe drove us to another round of diligence before completing the transaction.
In hindsight, that information would have been there. Would you have had as much of an opportunity with these clients going forward to create, and we're going to get to the new services that you created, but if that was all documented, could you have had maybe the upside that you have today with those clients? Would it have been better or worse is, I guess really what I'm getting at.
Great question. What we would have done if we had the insight into that data is probably bifurcated or split up how we service those customers. We would have identified those that were ready for our more mature managed service model, continued to work on transition with them, and then those that were not ready and needed more of that plumber break fix, jump in the car and go do it model, we would have had a different team of our staff service and support them following that legacy approach for at least a while longer, while we then continued to work on a different plan and strategy to see if we could transition them into the higher profit approach of and more valuable approach of managed services.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I can understand that completely. I mean, one of the things that we talk to clients about all the time is, there's no perfect business, right? It just doesn't exist. I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen it. I don't think I ever will. And some of these blemishes are really the upside and the opportunity for the new owner, right? But it's a balancing act, right? I mean, is there a good enough foundation there that you can, move forward and make enhancements, or is there something really broken and it's a house of cards?
You got it.
So take me down the path for let's stick with the transaction for a moment. And then I really want to get to integration and what evolved from this acquisition. So you're in the middle of the transaction. Were there any surprises or anything that, any roadblocks that you hit along the way that, would be good to share with the audience?
From a transaction perspective, things went pretty smoothly. We were, able to fund and then line up residual financing that we needed quite readily. As I said, the financial review aspect was smooth, and all of that played out quite well. There was a little bit of a transitional hiccup. The other provider, their company, had a part-time resource doing billing and invoicing, and she was kind of at arm's length, very hands-off, so it took a little bit longer to do knowledge transition there because the owner himself didn't actually know how he did invoicing, which we didn't find out until after the deal closed, and we went to do that portion of the knowledge transfer. So that was kind of a miss on our part. That would have been better to understand before we signed the paperwork. But as far as the actual transaction itself, it was pretty smooth. I guess the one thing that we did learn that was counter to our strategy, as I mentioned, we were looking for companies where the owner was looking to exit primarily for a retirement opportunity. What either we underestimated or the seller understated was how quickly they were ready to be done, whereas we had an agreement and intent for that individual to continue with us for a much more considerable amount of time, really help ease the transition of the customer base through the different service models, and that just didn't quite play out. We very quickly saw some disengagement, disinterest, and quite frankly, this individual, as I said, they were kind of already in semi-retirement. I think they had hit their burnout point, and maybe that didn't come through as clearly as we could have dug for it before the transaction. So once they knew somebody else was answering the phone and they could sleep through the night, and it wasn't their cell phone ringing at 2:00 in the morning when somebody's server is down, they stepped back a little faster, a little further than we anticipated. And because of that mismatch in how our delivery model is compared to their delivery model, that's where we kind of ran into that transition snag with some of those customers.
So how did you deal with that once you realized that maybe the owner really wasn't going to be there and was checking out? What did your team do to handle that?
Well, from the customer perspective, continue to engage and do anything and everything we could to service the customer. But at that point, there's a bit of a knowledge gap. So, service quality was a little bit harder than we anticipated. So a lot more effort went into it. And then from there, it was really just working with the customers and learning their environments, as if they were just a net new customer, which, of course, is a customer that had longevity with a prior provider. It's not a great experience for them, coming in post-acquisition and rightfully feeling like they were a brand new customer and we didn't know their environment. So that was not the smoothest transition we would have hoped for.
So you get the transaction done at this point, and you're ready for integration. Let's talk about how you integrated the business into Leeward, and what were some of the things that you hadn't anticipated, or what are some of the things that really went well?
Well, for us, one of the things that really went well is it was a very relationship-driven business that we bought, and we are a very relationship and relational business and business culture. While we have far more than just one employee out there providing service, our employees are all very personal and personable with our customers. They get to know birth dates and vacation plans and travel and anniversaries. And when they're working with customers over the phone for support, they're having conversations that are a lot more meaningful at a personal level. And then also really understanding their business and their business processes and helping to manage and support the technology in a way that's aligned to the required business value. So that piece worked well. From a relationship perspective, we were able to sit down and have just wonderful conversations with the customers, their owners, and had great alignment there. The transactional or transitionary piece, rather, integration piece that didn't go spectacular was because of the variance in service model. And what we learned along the way was inconsistencies in how the other provider that we acquired was servicing their customers. And the good news is that gained us some insight that led to a pretty cool aha light bulb moment for us.
Yeah, so tell me about that. I'm excited for you to share this with the M&A Unplugged community.
So one of the things that we came to realize is that these small businesses, as they were being serviced over the years, there was not consistency. So this customer had two Dells, one HP, a Lenovo, all kinds of different computer equipment, and then different software, different versions, a lot of inconsistency in their environment. And in that kind of break-fix plumber model, the more inconsistency and, things like selling refurbished equipment and trying to Frankenstein back together an old PC to do a quick fix means higher support costs because that equipment's breaking, the applications aren't working right, the performance isn't there, the list of pain points goes on. And so we sat back and we said, all right, well, break fix is not a high value to our customers. It gets very expensive very quickly. And if you think about it, what a challenging model, Domenic. So, you're using your computer today to run your business, and all of a sudden it stops working, and now you have to pay somebody to come and fix it while you're not able to run your business. Not a great warm fuzzy, right, from your technology. You need it working.
With as much as we all rely on our technologies, these days, I mean, that puts you out of business.
Right. And then the double whammy of, now I'm having trouble running my business because my technology's down and I'm going to get hit with this big support bill to fix it. So we said, okay, this is not the way Leeward would do it. It's not the way I've done it, 25 plus years in the Fortune 500 space. We need consistency, manageability, and these environments need to be supportable. We need to be able to do it at scale and do it efficiently. So we took a step back and we looked at a couple different factors. And what came out of that was the development of a new service line called Leeward Elite. And in its simplest terms, it's everything all wrapped up in one. It's the complete package for a small business to provide support and manage their technology for a flat fee per month, per employee. We provide desktop or laptop, whatever form factor is best for their use case. Enterprise business class grade networking equipment. So that's your firewall and your switch and your wireless to make sure that everything is properly connected, encrypted, protected from viruses and intruders. And then all the service and support behind the scenes, unlimited storage for backup, and the ability to call our quick answer support team 24/7 as early and as often and as much as needed for any and all support needs. And then to really drive home the value, we wrap that with a virtual CIO service, so a chief information officer. So that business owner can call and just spitball questions. Hey, we're thinking about acquiring another branch, or we might move into a different location, or this accounting software isn't quite cutting it for us anymore. What's hot in the market? What else should we be looking at? And we're not billing hourly for consulting. We are providing that as part of the package service to help our small businesses make the best possible decisions and investments in their technology. All the while, our entire team is managing, supporting, monitoring, maintaining security, and helping them with their day-to-day technology issues. And now they've got the right type of business class equipment, things like next business day on-site warranty. If that laptop flakes out and the screen blinks, we've got a technician from the manufacturer on site the next day with a replacement screen, swapping it out and getting you back up and running. And the price point at which we can do that just completely blows it out of the water compared to trying to go out and make your own hardware acquisitions and trying to work with 3 or 4 different vendors for support and software. One-stop concierge type experience with Leeward Elite.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing service. I mean, I would deal with small business owners and mid-sized business owners all day long, and I'd say IT is just one of those sort of areas where people just fumble. They fumble around. Oh, something's not working. Who do we call? And how much is it going to be? Do we have to have a tech come out? And so this sounds like a tremendous service. So the acquisition actually led you to this service, which is what we talked about earlier, right? I mean, no perfect business, and it's all about how can you take, if there's a decent foundation there, how can you take it to the next level? So how is this service being received in the marketplace?
Phenomenal. First off, a number of the customers that we acquired through the acquisition have been converted to that model now. Rave reviews. We've got a handful of testimonials up on the Leeward Elite website now that speaks to the change in their experience going from that break-fix model now into this Leeward Elite concierge model. The dollars and cents aspect of it keep proving themselves again and again, both to us and to the customer. We sit down and we go over their numbers and what they had been spending with the other approach, and the money they've been spending buying PCs from online and local electronic stores, and we tally all that up and we look at it, and then we show them the monthly rate for Leeward Elite. And it's like, wow, why didn't we do this all before? Well, the simple answer is because we hadn't thought it up before. But the model in its foundation is something that's kind of sort of been around for a while, but not packaged quite the way we have packaged it together today. So great value for customers. Really brings them consistency in their technology experience. And honestly, Dominic, I think one of the things most powerful aspects of Leeward Elite is our customers now have a full trusted advisor. Don't have to flip through their Rolodex to call 3 different people. They don't have to wonder or worry, is the data backed up? Is my antivirus up to date? Is my firewall going to pass my credit card processor's scan when they do a PCI compliance check? Because the answers are just yes, 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 and yes. It's taken care of. It's managed. It's reported. They can see the value being provided, and then they can focus on what's important to them. Technology is pervasive. It's critical to every business, but not every business is a technology business. And so if you're up at 3 a.m. to start kneading the dough to get your baked goods up and rolling, you don't also have time to be fidgeting with accounting software updates and Windows updates, and that's not where you want to spend your time. And if you don't, unfortunately, because of the state of security and the cyber threats, if those things don't get done, you might not have a business if you get attacked and crypto viruses and hackers and all these guys get in there and they make quite a mess of things.
Well, I got to tell you, it just sounds amazing. And I love the CIO component of that is really very interesting, right? So it goes beyond just, managing their platforms and their devices. I mean, now you've got somebody who can really help you with strategy, which is, it's for the same, one price. I mean, that's really something. I'm so glad to hear that the acquisition led you to this.
Yeah, and the acquisition goal, as I stated, was learn that small business segment, and it was successful in accomplishing that. It got us a pool of customers where we learned from and piloted the service, and then, while we didn't retain all of those customers, it certainly got us a subset of that we were able to then convert through the pilot to the Leeward Elite model, and very, very kind of rapid prototyping, if you will, very, very quickly prove out the value, make a few tweaks along the way. Of course, we're always learning and improving, a few quick adjustments to the service and approach, and off to the races. And Domenic, this kind of ties, my next kind of comment here kind of ties our culture all back together. We started out talking about how we're philanthropic with our time, and we go out to the schools and middle schools and high schools, and some of the workforce solution efforts that we do to create opportunities and technology for individuals. As we talk about Leeward Elite and the Leeward model with some of our customers, we've had a couple of them that are like, I'm not quite getting it. Why do you want to save me money? What's in it for you to lower our monthly bill? And Domenic, I look at them, square and say straight, if I can make your technology less of a barrier and lower the money that you spend to operate your business, I'm hoping that you're going to invest and grow. I'd rather meet you now as a 5, 10, 15 employee company, give you a much better technology operating platform that lets you grow to a 30, 50, 100, 5,000, however far you want to go, as far as they want to go, because now we're the trusted advisor with a deep relationship and we're growing with them. It is so much easier to grow our business with our customers than it is to go out and snag, net new business. It's a, much different sales cycle and marketing cycle. So why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we provide that type of comprehensive service and embed that virtual chief information officer into it, and not sit here and try to nickel and dime? Because I don't want our customers to be strained for cash. I want our customers to be enabled for success, and then we all win and grow together. I just don't know a better way to do it.
Oh, I think you're spot on. What a great way to run a business with purpose, and you're starting from, the most important place, your clients. You're putting yourself in their shoes and trying to figure out, if I was them, what would I want? What do I need? And it sounds like you've come up with a service here that's a home run. So congratulations. That's just awesome. So, Michael, we're going to wrap up here, but before we do, I got just two last questions. One is, if you were going to give somebody advice that was looking to acquire a business, if there was one key thing that you learned from the process, what would you tell that person?
Boy, one key thing, I think I'd really go back to spend the time, make sure you have all the insights you need to be comfortable with knowing the details of what their current customers are being served with and how they're being served, and make sure that either fits your model or that you have a specific plan in place to continue to service them using the other company's model until you can finish sorting those pieces out and really smooth out the integration. Don't just assume that because another company looks like yours, that it is like yours. Take the time to roll up those last few layers and really get in there.
Great. That's awesome. And my last question, I'm trying to ask most of my guests this, have you read a business book, or any book for that matter, that's really left an indelible impression on you? Something that you read and said, wow, this really is life-changing for me.
Honestly, probably one of the most pervasively impactful books I have ever read. It's actually a pretty short and simple read, and I highly recommend it. It was written by a former FBI profiler, and I believe the title of the book is What Every Body is Saying. And it is a wonderful, insightful way to make sure that you are in tune with and understanding body language, especially in complex or difficult conversations. It can be so easy in business transactions to focus on the words, get caught up in email ping pong games, but to sit across the table from somebody, see them, look them in the eyes, and understand what they're saying and why they're saying it and where that feeling comes from. Very insightful book to tie all that together. Just love it.
I've never heard of that one, and it sounds a little chilling to me, but very interesting. I'm a big believer in having that human connection, and so that sounds very interesting. So, Michael, if people needed to get a hold of you and wanted to reach you, talk about Leeward, how can they get in touch with you?
We're pretty darn accessible. I don't know that I could hide if I wanted to at this point. So by all means, anybody and everybody is welcome to call our office. We're here in lovely Kenosha, Wisconsin, right off of the lake. And our office number here is area code 262-358-4116. And anybody that's interested, especially small businesses with 5 to 50 employees, and they want to learn more about Leeward Elite, just head on over to leewardelite.com and take a look at some great explainer videos we have up there and peruse through the customer testimonials. And feel free to drop us a link through the contact form there, and we'll be happy to get engaged and get your information and explain how Leeward Elite can really help excel your business.
All right, Michael, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And folks, if you need to get a hold of Michael, he's giving you all of his information here. And, just to summarize a few things that Michael hit on, that I think are really key takeaways. One, spend time with the owner of the business. If you're looking to do an acquisition, spend time with that owner. Get to know them. Get to understand their motivations and who they are and how they've operated the business. It's so important to develop that relationship. It'll just make for a much better transaction. The other thing was, you have to be careful, is the seller the business? Are they the one that's out with the clients? Are they the one that's handling all the issues? Are they the funnel or the choke point in the business? And it doesn't mean that it's a bad business. It just means that there's some risk factors that need to be thought about and mitigated, which can be, but it's certainly something to be looking at. The other thing you heard here is there's no perfect business. Michael did a transaction here, and there were some surprises post-acquisition, but he had a good enough foundation, and what came from that solid foundation is now a whole new business line and a whole new way to support small to medium-sized clients for their IT needs. And so we say this all the time, no perfect business. As a buyer, you want some warts, you want some issues if you can envision the upside. And so tremendous advice there, and kudos to Michael and his team at Leeward for developing a new product out of that. And then the last thing he mentioned was synergies. Making sure that there's all of the synergies there on the surface. Just because someone does what you do or they're in the same business does not mean that there's a good synergistic fit there between your two businesses. And that's just hard work and diving in diligence and learning all you can before you make that final decision. All of today's information will be available in the show notes. If you would like to learn more about the process of acquiring or selling a business, please visit our website at sunacquisitions.com or feel free to reach out to me at drinaldi@sunacquisitions.com. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the M&A Unplugged podcast. And until then, please remember that scaling, acquiring, or selling a business takes time, preparation, and the proper knowledge.
Thank you for joining us today on M&A Unplugged. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and recommend it wherever you get your podcasts. If you want more great information on how to scale, acquire, or sell a business, please visit our website at sunacquisitions.com.